Some of the biggest divides in history don't start with a bang, like a war or a revolution. They start with a question. Today, we're digging into the origins of Shia Islam, and it's a story that kicks off with a leadership crisis that grows into a unique, powerful, and often tragic branch of faith.
So, this is it. This is the question that changes everything. When the Prophet Muhammad died, he left the brand new Muslim community without a clear leader. And how they decided to answer this one question about who should take charge, well, it would split the faith and shape the course of history for the next 1400 years.
So you'd think there would be one clear answer, right? Well, not exactly. The community basically split into two camps, with two very different answers. And those two answers created the two main branches of Islam we know today, Sunni and Shia. Let's dig into what each side believed.
Okay, so this is where the road really forks. On one side, you have the Sunni position. They argued that the Prophet left it up to the community to decide. So the elders got together, they talked it out, and by consensus, they chose Abu Bakr, one of the Prophet's closest friends. For them, leadership was about community choice and a person's character. But on the other side, you've got the Shia position. They believe the choice wasn't left to men at all. They say the Prophet had already made it clear that his cousin and son-in-law, Ali, was the designated successor. For them, leadership was a divine right that had to stay within the Prophet's family.
And this statement, this right here, is the cornerstone of the Shia claim. The Prophet said this while holding Ali's hand in front of a huge gathering. Now for Shia Muslims, that word Mawla, or patron, is a slam dunk. It means leader, successor. But for Sunni Muslims who also accept this event happened, Mawla means something more like a cherished friend or a spiritual guide, not a political ruler. So you see how everything hinges on the meaning of a single word? Is it leader or is it friend? That's the great divide.
So what happened right away? Well, the consensus side won the day. Abu Bakr became the first caliph, followed by Umar and then Uthman. But for the Shia, which literally means the party of Ali, these three leaders were illegitimate. In their eyes, Ali's divine right had been stolen, and this feeling of injustice, well, it's a feeling that's going to stick around for a long, long time. Okay, so Ali does eventually get his turn to lead, but it is anything but a smooth ride. This next period, full of conflict and heartbreak, is what really hammers out a distinct Shia identity, one that's built on themes of suffering, martyrdom, and incredible loyalty. Just look at this timeline. Ali's 5 years in charge were basically one long, brutal civil war. He's fighting off challenges from every direction, from other companions of the Prophet, from powerful governors like Muawiyah, and even from his own former supporters who felt he'd compromised. His rule was defined by this constant internal struggle, and it ends tragically with his assassination while he was praying.
But as important as Ali's story is, believe it or not, the event that truly defines Shiism happens 2 decades later, to his son. It's a tragedy that becomes the emotional and spiritual core of the faith.
You really can't understand Shiism without understanding Karbala. It is everything. Hussein, the Prophet's own grandson, saw the Caliph Yazid as a corrupt tyrant and refused to bow to him. So he set out with just a tiny group of family and followers. They were trapped in the desert at a place called Karbala, cut off from water for days, and then they were massacred. This event isn't just a historical footnote, it becomes this powerful symbol of standing up to tyranny, no matter the cost. The annual commemoration, Ashura, is one of the most intense and emotional events in the religious world, and it keeps this story of martyrdom right at the heart of the Shia identity. So, all of this history, this struggle, this martyrdom, it leads to a really unique idea, the concept of the imam. Now, for Shia Muslims, an imam isn't just a guy who leads prayers or a king. He is a divinely chosen, infallible, and sinless spiritual guide who must come from the Prophet's direct bloodline. This is a huge deal. The whole debate moves beyond just politics and becomes a deep theological doctrine about where you can find true divine authority on earth. Now, it's really easy to think of Shia Islam as this one single block, but that's not the case at all. It's more like a tree that branched off from the main trunk of Islam. And then those branches branched off again, usually because of another disagreement over, you guessed it, who the next rightful imam was. So let's look at the 3 big branches that are still around today. The vast majority are Twelvers. They believe there was a line of 12 imams, and that the final one is alive but in hiding, waiting to return. Then you have the Ismailis, who believe in a living, present imam. Right now, that's the Aga Khan. And finally, the Zaydis, who have a more activist view.
They say any qualified descendant of the Prophet can be the Imam, but he has to prove it by rising up and fighting against injustice. See? Totally different approaches to leadership.
All right, let's zoom in on the biggest group by far, the Twelvers, because their whole approach to politics has done a complete 180 in the last century, going from basically staying on the sidelines to jumping right into the driver's seat of a major world power.
To get this shift, you first have to understand this core belief called Ghaiba, or the occultation. The idea is that the final Imam, the 12th one, didn't actually die way back in the 9th century. Instead, God hid him from the world. They believe he's still alive, spiritually guiding humanity, and will one day return as the Mahdi, a messianic figure who will finally bring perfect justice to the world.
Okay, so think about the political consequences of that belief for a second. If the only truly legitimate ruler on Earth is in hiding, what do you do about the kings and presidents running things right now? Well, for over 1,000 years, the answer was pretty much you wait. You keep your head down, you practice your faith, and you stay out of worldly politics because all of it is, in a way, illegitimate. This is political quietism.
But then, in the 20th century, along comes this radical new idea that completely flips the script. Wilayat al-Faqih, the mandate of the jurist. This was a theory developed by Ayatollah Khomeini, and it argued that, no, we can't just wait around. He said that in the Imam's absence, the top religious scholars have not just the right, but the duty to step in and run the state themselves.
So how did he get from A to B? Let's walk through the logic. He starts with the traditional belief. The Imam's gone, so worldly governments are illegitimate. Check. But he says the community can't just be left drifting without a leader. He then argues that the Imams had delegated their authority to the top scholars. And here's the revolutionary part. Khomeini argues this delegation wasn't just for giving religious advice, it was a mandate for full political power.
And this wasn't just some academic theory. In 1979, it exploded onto the world stage. The Iranian Revolution took Khomeini's idea and made it the foundation of a modern nation-state. It was a total game-changer, establishing the Islamic Republic of Iran with a religious scholar as the supreme leader.
And that brings us to today. The very first question that created this great divide was who should lead? But for millions of Twelver Shia Muslims now, the question has become something even more complicated. With their true leader in hiding, how should they be led? Is it about waiting patiently for his return, or is it about taking power directly and building a state in his name? That's the tension that continues to shape politics and faith across the world.